Returning to our top story, opposition leader Susan Lee is under pressure to abandon net zero targets to keep the coalition together and safeguard her leadership. Well, joining us live is National Senator M.Canavan. Great to see you, Senator. Good morning to you. So if the Liberals don't dump net zero, could we see another breakup?
Well, look, I don't think that will happen, Janie. I obviously would like the Liberal Party to join with the Nationals Party in our position to reject this net zero scam. It is just a scam transferring billions of dollars from hardworking Australians to rich investors, to banks, to consultants who are all drinking from the teat of net zero, and that's why they're all panicked right now and worried that milk will stop flowing if we move away from this agenda, which has done nothing but increase power bills for Australians and lost jobs in our manufacturing industry. So the sooner we get off that, the better, I think. Look, it's a matter for the Liberal Party, but as I say, the Nationals Party voted unanimously for a plan that will lead to cheaper power prices. We'll make sure we'll have better environmental policies protecting our local environment, and it will be fairer as well, because right now Australia is cutting its emissions at a rate double that of advanced economies. Why wouldn't we reduce emissions in line with other economies so we don't put an unfair burden on Australian families?
And you and the Nationals, of course, came out with the announcement and you said climate change is real and you are committed to lowering emissions. And you just mentioned, better, fairer, cheaper ways to look at this. If we look at insurance premiums, for example, and the Australian Council of Australia is saying that over 800,000 homes are not or under insured, how do we prepare to prevent insurance claims? I mean, is there more pressure, for example, needed on government to mitigate, to look at thousands of homes on floodplains, to look at changes like that? Like, what do we need to see if we are going to be looking at it in a better way?
Look, I know there's a lot of focus on the so-called extreme weather events here, but the big reason why insurance premiums are going up so much right now is because the cost of everything is going up. The cost of building things is going up, the cost of concrete, the cost of steel. And so in the events that you do face the unfortunate tragedy of losing part or all of your home, it's a lot more costly to replace now. And therefore the premiums have to go up. It's inflation that's driving increases in insurance premiums. And that goes back to the point here that this net zero agenda is pushing up the cost of everything, because when you push up the cost of energy, you push up the cost of everything. Making concrete is very energy intensive, so is making steel. And so the way to bring down the costs of everything in this country is to supply more energy to bring down the cost of that input. And the work we've done in the Nationals Party with the Page Research Centre shows that if we were to go back to using all of our resources, we've got these amazing energy resources, if we were to do that, we'd probably cut electricity prices by up to 25%. And that would help bring down insurance premiums as well. Isn't it absurd now that we face here in this country higher electricity prices than they are paying in Japan, despite the fact that we are the biggest supplier of energy to Japan? We export them our coal, our gas, and yet they can deliver power prices to their consumers, to their businesses at a much cheaper rate than us. That's got to change. I mean, we've got to start putting our own country first here and not just exporting our resources to other nations so they can compete with us, they take our jobs, and they have a higher standard of living than our own citizens.
And what are we going to do about food security? Because our prime agricultural land is a big issue. 90% of our food comes from regional Australia. We've got about 70% of exports in rural and regional Australia. And David Littleproud said on the weekend that about 7.2 hectares of prime agricultural land has been destroyed because of the renewables. That's a huge debate, as you well know, with many farmers. What are we going to do in that space?
Well, exactly right here. Just let's be very clear what's happened in Australia in the past 20 years. Often the government pats itself on the back saying that Australia has reduced its emissions by 28%. That's about 160 million tonnes of carbon abatement in round numbers. 150 of that 160 has come from planting trees on productive land. And so we've taken farmland out of production and converted it to, well, we say forests, but really we know in the bush they're just unmanaged scrub. It's pests and weeds. It's, no one manages the land anymore because there's no farmer. And that's the 7.2 million hectares that David mentioned there. Now, to put the size in context, Tasmania is just over 6 million hectares. So that's more than the size of Tasmania we've lost in terms of productive farmland in this effort to lead the world in reducing emissions. So that's one of the reasons why maybe we've been the first to bell the cat on this net zero scam in the Nationals Party, because our emissions from driving cars, from flying planes, from consuming energy-intensive goods has not changed. It's quite the irony that those parts of the country that have voted most aggressively for climate action themselves have not reduced their emissions. What's happened is we put the burden of emissions reduction on farming communities who have lost that productive land, therefore they lose jobs, their communities are no longer as prosperous as they once were. They're paying the price, and that's not fair too. And that's why we back a fair go on climate change here. We have a fair go in terms of reducing our emissions in line with other countries, and a fair go to ensure that we fairly spread the costs of emissions reductions across our whole country, not just impose them on some.
All right, Matt, I'm going to just bring in some live pictures to show you and our viewers. This is for the protest, the Indo-Pacific protest taking place in Sydney, the Palestine Action Group. I might get your reaction to that in a moment, but I did want to just quickly ask you about Barnaby Joyce, because I believe that you saw him yesterday. Would you be keen for him to come to the joint party room meeting today?
I'd love to have Barnaby back in the team, kicking goals for us. We've taken up the fight here now for Australians to get a better deal, to make sure that we keep our jobs here in this country. And, we need as many people as we can fighting for that. So, as I said earlier, I hope the Liberals come on board and fight for our country, fight to put our people first. And I'd love to see Barnaby part of that team as well. He's someone who's been belling the cat on this for a long time, and he's been proven right about how much of this is just a total scam. As I say, this is not, for most people, not all, but for most people pursuing this net zero agenda, it's not about saving the planet. They're just making a lot of money. They're making a lot of money on the backs of your higher power prices, of the jobs that we're losing. You're paying for that, but other people are getting rich.
Senator M.Canavan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Janie.
And great to have your company. Coming up after the break, more on Susan Lee. Will she dump net zero to secure her leadership of the coalition? Plus, how your household